Oh, see, here's you can make them a host. We could co-host. So that was a panel. So they can co-host. They can all unmute. No. We said mute.
All right, folks.
Hello.
Hey, Jeff, how are you?
Good. You?
Made the switch. We made the switch.
Deja vu.
We are going to wait just a couple minutes, and let these folks get in.
How many people you got for this?
I think somewhere between 15 and 20, but not all of them. I don't know that all of them will be on tonight. Because if it's a nice night, they might be out golfing. Who knows?
So was it a package deal that they bought, or was it by?
Yes, they could do a couple different things. They could just buy this single show and the VIP. They could just buy the show. They could buy the 4-pack. They could buy,
Oh, right.
any number. Hey, Dave's with Debbie.
Oh my goodness! Hi, Dave.
How many weeks have you been off the road? On the road, David. Show me numbers.
So a good friend of ours is a truck driver, and much like
you said on the road, I was thinking comedian. Who is it?
Nope.
No, he's a truck driver.
And an unsung hero. Truck driver,
Yeah.
the unsung hero of this whole thing.
Oh, look.
Oh,
Yeah.
So how many, Dave? I didn't see the fingers. How many? You've been home or off the road? You've been on for 7 weeks. Home for 7 weeks.
Ooh.
Well, I mean,
Wow.
Okay.
I can't.
All righty. Well, folks,
So
what we're going
just
to do
proud of you.
is we're going to use the chat option for you to ask questions. We'll kind of moderate the questions.
I have to go get to the chat.
Nothing is off limits. If you want to ask what that was in Jeff's teeth during the regular show, you can ask that.
a black bean.
A black bean. Very good.
Oh, Debbie says he's been gone since March 7th, but you're home now, right?
Right.
I hope so.
Yeah, they're talking about the truck driver guy.
No, I know that.
Truck driver, sorry.
Next to his wife.
Yes. Okay, so he's been on the road since March 7th. Wow. Thank
Wow.
you for all you've done, David.
So, folks, let's hear some of your questions. Here we go.
Thanks, Joe. When is pasta night at the Allen home?
Oh, that'll be tomorrow night.
It was supposed to be tonight.
It's supposed to be
but then
tonight.
The time, everything got out of whack.
I make a heck of a ziti. And
It's pretty damn good.
it's really good. And we eat on it for like 3 days. So
Do you make your
I
own
make a-
sauce?
Yeah,
no, gosh.
Yes, I do.
She
Oh.
does. I don't know. I
No,
buy whatever's on sale at Publix.
Buy one, get one.
But I fill it with meat and sausage.
Ah.
Italian sausage and meat and mozzarella cheese and Asiago cheese and Parmesan cheese. And so whatever the sauce is in there is so overwhelmed with all the other garbage I put in there that
Pretty darn good.
it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
Anytime I don't have to cook, it's pretty darn good.
We're in San Antonio, and our son and daughter-in-law made us Texas chili, which is beanless chili, which we really enjoyed not having beans in it. But our son likes spicy. If his head's
She really
not
enjoyed
sweating,
me not having beans in mine.
and if our son, his head, he doesn't like, so it was pretty spicy. It was really good because I enjoyed it.
I have found that as I'm getting really old that I got to be really careful about. I bent over the other day and inadvertently something came out that I used to have control over, but apparently I don't anymore. So, yeah.
All right, folks.
I did very
we want to hear from you guys. Questions for Jeff and Tammy. Chat away. Right, do it right on the chat screen.
Okay, and come up with
Well,
some
here,
questions.
I've got one. Jeff, how did you get started in comedy?
Oh, there you go.
It was I was working for a jewelry company. I was 21 years old, I guess. And someone said, well, I got to back up. My brother was a musician. And one night he was working a club in Chicago Heights, a suburb of Chicago. and a couple of comedians opened for him at the club. And I immediately said, I was probably 16, 17 years old, and said, I want to do that. And anyway, where do you do it? How do you get into comedy? I had no clue. It's not like a career day in high school. It was a table set up, So anyway, I was at this jewelry company, and we were putting a show together, and somebody said, let's go to the comedy club. And I said, comedy club, what's that? And they said, around the corner, there's a club that they have all comedians, one after another. And that was August of '78. And by November, I had worked the courage up to give it a shot. And didn't go well. It was Thanksgiving night. I had a few cocktails, just a few. And but at that point, I was doing magic. I was doing close-up magic. I learned that at college. So I thought I would go up and do magic. And I was dropping things. And I was so nervous. I dropped coins. It was awful, just awful. And that was Thursday night. That was open mic night. And Sunday night, I went back to go up again. And the MC said, you're going to have to make some sense. Whatever you said Thursday night, we're still trying to figure it out. That was my start. And,
Oh, my goodness.
Again, we talked about it in the previous one, that I knew if I could get past the stage fright, I could probably do this.
Yeah.
So somebody's asking you, Ray Francis is asking you, hobbies that you have other than golf. Hi to both of you.
Oh, she's the busiest person I've ever known.
I crochet.
Go get one of your, do you have one of your things? Go
Yeah,
get
well, they can't see it.
Anyway,
No.
she made blankets for two of the grandbabies. She's waiting. She gets her yarn from Norway or Scotland.
Oh,
or
wow.
England. And nothing's being shipped internationally. So she's waiting for yarn from there. She does some pretty intricate stuff, but she did calligraphy for a couple of seasons. I called it calligraphy. She'd sit downstairs in the basement doing calligraphy, which I think I would eat razor blades before I did calligraphy. And she bakes. She gardens. She raises chickens. I was telling a friend of mine, I never said this to her, so this is the first time she'll hear this, but I've steeped in her world for the last 3 months, and I'm impressed at how busy she is. I'm not a busy man. I'm not. I don't look for things to do. I like to read. I haven't read much because there's things to do all the time. There's things to do. So I'm impressed with how occupied she is, and it's all constructive, creative projects. Gardening, raising. Now she's got tomatoes out there. We just redid her entire garden, cleaned it all out. Raised bed garden she's got. So
Jeff, your hobbies would be golf and reading,
and watching her. Yeah, but golf. I love to read. I really do. And as a matter of fact, I got a lot of stuff to read now with what's been going on. There's some books that I want to read on the racial dynamics in the United States.
Give us
Robert Woodson stuff from the Woodson Center. He's intriguing to me, and his scholars.
Give us a couple book recommendations of something you've read recently. Nonfiction.
Oh, what have you read?
Well, what have I read? I haven't been reading much since this started because I usually read on the airplane. But for the last year or so, I've been reading all this Pulp Fiction. I read all of the Harry Bosch books. I used to read a lot of nonfiction. I used to read a lot of Ayn Rand. I used to read a lot of Philip Yancey. I love Philip Yancey stuff. Ravi Zacharias, who just passed away. I still haven't done a tribute to him. I'll probably, when I get over the fact that he's gone, he was such an intricate part of a couple of more than that, probably 3 or 4 seasons of mine, years.
Your faith.
And was able to at least go down and speak at his summer institute one year. And anyway, the Bible. I try to read the Bible. I do better listening to pastors who teach, people who've been anointed to teach the word, because it just opens up. Wow, I never, I read it and I don't get it's hard to explain. I don't get the revelation. It's as if God said, look, I put you out here to do this, and you're going to do the comedy and the whatever, but I want you to be fed. So here are these people, Matt Chandler from Village Church down in Texas, Tommy Nelson, Denton Bible, my pastor, Steve Berger from Grace Chapel. I'll mix it up and around. I'll listen in the car with that stuff. But Travis McGee, I've been reading those series of books. Those were written.
Did you say Fibber McGee?
Oh, Travis, not Fibber.
You remember
Travis
Fibber McGee?
Yeah, I do.
We're dating ourselves. So here's a great question. Tammy and Jeff, what was your first date like?
Oh, we know what that is.
Yeah.
Do you remember it?
I just remember sitting in the parking lot talking to you for hours.
No, it was The Color Purple.
Color Purple. Well, that was
We
that.
went to the movies.
So that was an official date. I'm talking about the night I met you at the club when you were wearing that hot leather skirt. You know, but it was The Color Purple, and then we went to Red Lobster.
Yep. And
Red
there was
Lobster, because I was a big spender.
There was like a worm in my.
And there was a worm in her salad. You know?
Oh my goodness.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've been
It's
back
funny
to-
how you remember those things. I mean, it's like 35 years ago, and we still, the worm. Yeah. So, but The Color
was The
Purple
Color
was a
Purple.
movie. It was a movie.
And you gave me yellow roses.
Gave me yellow roses. See, there you
Very cool.
so you were pretty good at first, maybe.
go. Well, again, it's the recruitment. Like Jay said in the previously, do what you did to Lander,
Yeah.
but keep doing it for 34 years. Yeah, 34 years.
So Bill wants to know, what's your worst night on the road and your best night on the road?
Oh, good question.
That's a good one. I had the worst night. I recently, probably in the last year, I was hired to do a corporate union. They were big union people, and I was aware they were a union, and I'm normally aware, but I do an opening in my show where I move a chair, the stool, I move it about 4 feet, and then my opening line is, I grew up in Chicago. What I just did with that chair would take 7 Teamsters.
Jeez.
Yeah, I lost them right then. I had to do it out. I'm telling you, the whole show, people were just texting each other. I know, and they were looking at their phones. Not a laugh. It was just awful, just awful. So, as from a performance standpoint, that was probably one of the worst. I don't have nights like that often, but probably one of the.
You've had a lot of big nights.
I've had some amazing nights. I got to tell you, I'll tell you what it was. When we first moved here, we were just putting our marriage back together, and just, the new place, new geographical, everything was, we were back in, and I met, Chaz Corzine.
Oh yeah.
So, I met
That's
Chaz,
his wife,
and he was,
or who introduced us to each other.
that's right. I remember
jumped
that.
the fever.
Right. So Chaz was managing Gary Chapman and Amy Grant at that time. And he invited us to the Ryman, but he invited us down to the Ryman. Gary was doing a Sunday night show called Sam's Place at the Ryman. And I was backstage at the Ryman, and you're looking at all these pictures of all these, Elvis and all these major big stars. And Chaz walks over and he goes, "Do you want to go up and do 5 minutes?" And I'm telling you, I'm coming out of comedy club. I've never worked in a venue like this. And I went up, and it was just magic, just absolutely. And I walk off, and Tammy was in tears.
Sure.
Just because our life was changing at that point. We were new believers. We were building a new marriage. And then to be able to go up and do what I do in front of, that crowd and have it go as well as it did. So that was probably the best memory.
So Ray wants to know, who are you two's favorite comedians and why?
Well, I don't know who hers are, but I'm a big fan of Brian Regan's. Big fan of Brian, and we used to work together in New York a lot. And I listened to Dennis Wolfberg. I was a huge fan of his. He passed away, but and then obviously, you grew up listening to Bill Cosby and Carlin. I'm really beginning to appreciate how good Carlin was and how poignant
Yeah.
You know, his 1999 thing on viruses and it was so right on. You know, once you get past the language, you know, and the language doesn't. I don't know. I grew up that way, so that doesn't bother me. But how prolific he was in writing and producing and creating, and I bought the whole shebang of his work, and I'm just kind of going through it piecemeal. And I'm probably on the 1970s right now, and just there isn't a topic that a comic talks about today that George didn't cover.
Very good. Tammy, how about you? Who are some of your favorite comedians?
And you can't say Jeff.
Other than Jeff.
Well, so okay, so when Jeff met me, I was a waitress at a comedy club, but I wasn't necessarily a fan of comedy. And to say that I can't say Jeff Allen is unfair, because that's the pinnacle for me, and that's who I compare everybody else to. So
Okay, you can say Jeff.
All right, now we can check that off the list right there. You know? Thank you, baby.
no, that's true. It's actually true.
Well, that was her laughing in the back of the room that attracted me to her.
Ah.
I couldn't see her. I heard the laugh. And as a former smoker, she couldn't get air into her lungs, and that's music to a comic's ears. So she's back there gasping for life.
So Bill wants to know what's a bit that you have that always kills? Like it's it's going to work every time you do it.
Oh, that's my gauge. If this bit doesn't work, it's the Select Comfort. We bought a Select Comfort bed, and each side has a number. And the higher the number, the harder the mattress. My number is 100 marble slab. Yeah, her number's 2. First night I laid on her side of the bed, I disappeared from view. I fell into a ditch I couldn't get out. But here's the line that I really like is, God, it's been so long since I've worked.
It's a fajita.
Don't get me wrong. Yeah, I just have to do the whole thing. So anyway, finally I can't get out. And the mattress wraps around her like a flour tortilla. The woman's sleeping in a fajita on her side of the bed. So I roll over to kiss her goodnight, fall into a ditch. I can't get out. I'm laying there. She's like, "Get off of me. Will you get off of me?" That's, by the way, if you're a newlywed, that's the sound of 34 years of love right there. You're on my hair. You haven't shaved. Your breath smells. Stop touching me.
I can't breathe.
Yeah, can't breathe. And I said, "Don't get me wrong. This is the line I love. Don't get me wrong. We still try to get romantic. We just save it for special holidays now." Turns out Tammy's favorite is leap year. So that's the line. If that one dies, then I know it's not me, because that's one of my favorite lines, leap year. In the last year, 2020 was a leap year, and I was getting constantly messaged on Facebook, constantly. Guess what year it is? Congratulations, leap year.
Big night.
Enjoy your big night.
So the Bible says 365 times fear not in the Bible. 365 times. One for every day, except when it's leap year. that's why the COVID came.
Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
That's right.
I like your bit about the brownies in the bedroom. I can't remember. I know you also talk about.
Oh, that's the nightstand. Yeah,
You also talk about the
Lock the door.
You have to have a you have a polar fleece vest or whatever jacket on, and she's
Oh no, that's the menopause.
The menopause.
Yeah.
It's the menopause. Yeah. That's another one that
Favorite line
I got thrown off the stage in Seattle in the middle of that bit. It was a group of environmental lawyers. I believe they were left of Fidel Castro, and they hated me when the MC introduced me as doing George W. Bush's inaugural. I could feel the visceral hatred as it was direct. I said, I don't know why somebody put that in the intro, and so.
So I got to tell you, one of your favorite lines, and I have stolen it. I will confess, is that menopause has me longing for the good old days of PMS.
Right, I missed the good old days of PMS.
Okay, so Ron wants to know, how do you make your humor seem so easy and natural? They love this story too.
Repetition and repeating and repetition. My fear is that I get old enough and I'm on my deathbed, and the only thing I can remember is my act. And my grandchildren are going, "Man, what's he talking about? VW Bug? Those things have been out of production for decades, you know." And
Happy wife,
happy life. What's he talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my
Hey,
goodness.
Debbie,
But repetition.
tell us which story it was that Dave had to pass. Dave almost passed out. Dave laughed so hard at that one, I thought he was going to pass out.
Probably
One of
leap-
these he
probably
just
leap-
did.
was it
The
leap
leap
year?
year.
Leap year.
She's going to tell us. The menopause story.
Yeah.
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 Because we can all
That was-
relate. Cheers.
Yeah, it's funny. Bill Gaither had asked me to not do that because he got 4 or 5 letters out of 15,000 people. You know, I used to love his audience. I'd be sitting at my table. They'd come up and go, "Could you tell Bill to turn it down? It's a little loud." You know? I go, "Sure." You know, I'll just, "Hey, Edna, in row 63, section F, it's a little loud, Bill. Could you turn that down?"
Yeah.
Hey, here's a great story about God and using people. I was I was on the road a lot. I was really depressed. I wasn't feeling right. I was really down in the dumps, really bad. And I'm sitting at my table, and so I hear the click, click, click of some, and the people are in the arena listening to the show, and I was outside sitting by my table alone, and I hear click, click, click. Somebody's coming. And I put my head down. I didn't want to talk to anybody. And I hear the heels go by, click, 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 click. And I'm thinking, great, they went on. And then there's a stop. And I'm thinking, nuts. Whoever it is going to come back and talk to me. She turns around and she says, "I don't know why, but God just told me to tell you he loves you."
Cool.
And then she turns around and leaves. And I'm telling you, it was profound.
No doubt.
And again, people don't act on that. You know, I've had moments on airplanes where I walk by flight attendants and I hear that. I feel something, and you want to walk over and go, "God just told me you're going through something. Is it all right if I pray for you?" And I don't have the courage to do that.
Right.
So anyway, I don't even know why I brought that up.
It's probably at a Gaither event.
Oh, it's a Gaither event. That's what it is.
Yep. Because they are very spiritual at those Gaither events.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, he's got.
That's good encouragement. Hey, anybody got 1 or 2 more questions before we wrap up this VIP?
Don't, man. She's going to hurt me. No, keep me on the air. Keep me on the air.
I'm going to force you to eat.
Before she's going to eat me a carrot cake.
That carrot cake looks delicious. I've been
It
staring
is,
at it all
believe me.
night.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else? Well, folks, thank you all for coming out tonight.
Thank you,
And
Jeff and Tammy, for joining
great
us.
job.
Okay.
Bye, Dave.
Yep.
Bye, Dave.
We'll see you on the road, folks.
Bye,
Yes,
guys.
we will.
Bye,
We'll see you on the
yeah,
road.
We'll see
God
you on
bless.
the road. Have a good week, guys.
Thank you.